And
we're going to get started promptly on time. Barbara Feldman is here. Hello, Barbara.
Welcome.
And then we're going to end right at 7 Eastern Time.
Great,
well,
everyone's joining us.
I missed everyone. Trudy. Log in. We got Scarsdale, Weird Austin, Washington.
2 from Washington.
2 from Washington. Eileen, you're in good company.
Poll-wise, everybody seems nice, Professor Schinke.
Yeah,
very nice.
I'm blushing. I'm blushing. Lawrence and Jim. Elvira. Caitlin, welcome everybody. 1 minute to go.
Oh, we got another Texas.
We got another Texas, a Houston. Houston, Elliot's saying, who's from Houston? Caitlin's from Houston.
All right.
My brother-in-law lives in Houston. And the names are piling up. Julia. Hi, Julia. Good to see you again.
Oh, hey.
So I guess equipment's working for everyone. And it's half past.
All right. I guess time to get started, but we can leave these polls up for a minute or so.
Yep.
All right. So welcome, everybody. And I'm really happy to see this active chat because that is exactly what we want. In fact, I'm going to make the chat a little bit bigger so that we can see where everyone's coming from and see all the chat happening. So as you have anything you want to say, please let us know. We want to make this super interactive and super fun. And I see polls are coming in also. Excellent. So today we're going to do a little bit of an interview. I'm going to ask Professor Schinke some questions about his research, and then it's going to open up to all of you to see what questions you have about the research, about the school, about what's in his mug, what's he drinking in there. So anything you want to ask. All right, so first question. As we're still getting some polls in. Excellent. So our first question, Professor Schinke, can you tell us about your research project?
Sure. I enjoy talking about our work because usually it's so boring no one wants to hear about it. But this is something a little sexier, the marijuana legalization issue. And so it is of general interest. My colleague Tracy Schwinn and I have 2 grants from the National Institutes of Health to develop prevention programs. One is aimed at developing prevention programs at Hispanic youth, early adolescents, and the other at young women or adolescent women. And they're both focused on these 2 respective populations because they're at high risk for various problems associated with marijuana, not necessarily more marijuana use, but problems associated with it. And so because we were doing these 2 randomized clinical trials, we needed to collect baseline data. And we said, wouldn't it be interesting to identify the states that the use are from and then juxtapose that with the use rates, and then we could make certain estimates about the effects of the different state laws. And of course, state laws, as we're all aware, are are liberalizing rapidly. So we have some states that a lot of states allow medical marijuana use. A lot of states have decriminalized marijuana use, and some states allow recreational use. And you've all been seeing all this. And then a lot of states still have laws against any marijuana use or possession. So shall I tell about the study?
Well, I'd like to give everybody a chance to predict. So I'm
Oh,
just going
okay.
to switch layouts.
All right.
Whoops, and actually I'll do this so you can have more chat space. And I'll open this poll here. So, while you're thinking, what's your prediction? Do you think that adolescent marijuana use is going to be higher in states where marijuana is legal or lower in states where marijuana is legal? I would like to ask Professor Schinke what motivated you to do this study.
Right. Okay. We're very interested in drug use among youth, and so we said, well, if we knew that the state laws did or did not affect use among the young people we were surveying, we could change our intervention, our prevention materials accordingly. So we made sure that we had a national sample. We covered 48 states and Washington, D.C., and we surveyed a total of 1,300, a little over 1,300 young people, and they were all aged between 13 and 15, and in those two demographic groups that I mentioned before. And let's wait for these predictions to come in a little bit before we tell you what we found.
Mm-hmm. So far, nobody has no prediction. Everyone's got an opinion, so that's pretty interesting.
Everyone has an
person.
opinion. Now, if any of you are online with us for the first time, you've not taken a course with us, this is kind of what we do in teaching a course. We have the instructor here on the camera, and everyone has a headset and they have cameras on their computers. The one difference is because this is kind of a large group, we're not doing any cameras and not doing any microphones, but normally we do that. And then we have polls like you're seeing here, lots of polls, and then we have a chat screen. So this is pretty much looks like a class. Anyone who hasn't taken a class with us, those who have, and I see a number of familiar names here, this is old hand to you. Are you ready, Mattia?
I think so, although Sam has a question about, is it just any cannabis or is it a particular kind?
Any marijuana use. We just ask them, we have a big questionnaire and it says, have you used marijuana? And we define what it is, various forms, and then we ask them about the last 30 days, and we ask them if they smoked a whole joint, for example, a part of a joint, things like that. So it's a kind of a big questionnaire, but we then boiled it down, used marijuana or not used marijuana in the last 30 days.
All right, so we've got our virtual drum roll. Here we go. Okay. Results.
Yeah. Result. Now here is a table, a data table, and my former students will be very comfortable with this table. And for those of you who are not, I'm just going to take this little green arrow here and walk you through the table a little bit. We have variables. We just had a few variables here down these down this column. So each variable refers to one of these rows over here. And we're not going to get into what the statistics mean here, but will suffice to say that the asterisks mean statistical significance. So one or two asterisks, and that's in the footnotes, which we cut off the table to make it easier to read. So I'm going to now, and again, if any of you have not taken a class, this is what we do as well, and my students will attest to this, that I can mess up a table so bad it's completely illegible, and I'll try not to do that here. So we start with the kind of obvious variables. Age, it's a continuous variable, and we found that as youth get older, they use more marijuana. So this is actually what researchers spend their time doing, is pointing out the obvious. as people develop and mature, they use more marijuana. Then we looked at the relationship of marijuana use to gender. Now this is across the whole 1,300 sample in all 48 states, so we're not slicing and dicing yet by states. And we looked at gender, and we found that the odds ratio for young men is lower than it is for young women, and that's got the asterisk, so it's statistically significant. So that actually means that the young women are using more marijuana than the young men. And as I said before, we're doing these prevention trials for these special populations because they have different issues, and the one trial is aimed only at young women, and this gives it some rationale here. Then we looked at race, and we separated race and ethnicity. So we'll get to ethnicity in a minute. We looked at race, and we saw if people listed their race as black, there is the odds ratio. It's a fairly low odds ratio, but notice the absence of an asterisk there. There isn't anyone there, so that means it's not statistically significant. So my students know that when you don't have statistical significance, you don't have anything really to talk about. Other race is the same thing. No asterisk there, and so that doesn't do anything. Then we looked at the ethnicity of the youth, and we found that Hispanic youth have an odds ratio, and it's significant. See there, and it's a fairly low odds ratio, and you just take my word for it at this point, lower than 1. And so that means they use less marijuana, the Hispanic youth, than the non-Hispanic youth. They use less marijuana. And then parent education, quelle surprise here. When parents have more education, their children use less marijuana. So now, ta-da, now another drum roll. Here's the odds ratio for whether marijuana use differs according to its legal status. So I will not talk until one of my students tells me whether, in fact, there is a difference according to the legality or illegality here. Irene, bam, Elia. Irene, Jen's going to come in. No difference, no difference. Now, how did my brilliant students know this? Do they have a crystal ball? Are they looking at tea leaves at the bottom of their teacup? No, they know it because there's no asterisk. And we established that when you have a significant probability level, the nice people who made the table, which is yours truly, puts in an asterisk, and we didn't put in an asterisk here, and so there's none. Also, if you know a little bit about odds ratios, and we're not asking anyone to learn about them today, but an odds ratio of 1 essentially means there's no difference. The rates are the same. So this is all the legal categories: recreational use, medical use, decriminalized, and then relative to illegal marijuana. And we see that there's no difference at all, which means that the state laws aren't affecting the youth. And lastly, before I'll throw it open for questions, we looked at each of those categories separately. This table doesn't have it. This table, we're trying to publish this table in a journal, and the journal editors wrote us back and said, enough with the individual categories already, just tell us the overall message. Does it change according to state laws? But we looked at the recreational, decriminalized, medical versus illegal, and no category has any relationship, any statistically significant relationship to use. So with that, I will throw it open for questions on this or on anything, any topic at all.
So I see Eileen is asking, is this what you expected?
We did expect it, Eileen, because a lot of other people have gone before us on this, as it turns out. And this has been a hard paper to publish because a lot of other people have been looking at this. You throw out something new, and all these young assistant professors trying to get tenure, they say, I know what I'll do. I'll survey a bunch of kids and see if their marijuana increases. So over the period we were doing this study, all sorts of people came forth with the same findings, but concurrently, a number of alarmist editorials and sort of suggestive data also came out in like JAMA, the New England Journal, other big mocker kind of publications, and they said, oh, this is going to increase marijuana use. These changing liberal laws are going to increase marijuana use among youth, and we have to be vigilant here. But in fact, we're not alone.
So we've got some good questions here. So Elia is asking,
Yeah.
She may have gotten you. She may have gotten you because she's heard in most studies that legalization of drugs has showed decreased drug use, for example, in Portugal.
Decreased drug use, legalization. Well, that would be among adults, I suppose, right? Because their, prices and things like that are probably changing, and venues and things. But remember, these kids can't use marijuana legally, even if it's legal. And then what else do we have here? Do you think this research will have any impact on the legalization of marijuana? It's got to, because the people who are raising alarms about increased marijuana use among adolescents by virtue of relaxed state laws are not getting any support. They're not getting any traction. So eventually the corpus of research will not support that argument. And so I assume people will be not as concerned, and there'll be increased relaxation of laws. New studies and effects of K. No, well, I haven't done any of these works. K2 synthetic spice. Findings surprised me, Caitlin. Well, the other variables that I showed kind of surprised me. The higher rates among women, young women, and the lower rates among Hispanic youth. Overall, this is not according to any states. Those kind of surprised me. Other groups conducting research and publishing the findings. Yeah, there are some colleagues up at the medical school who are doing work. A lot of people, other people are, in fact, I think everybody else who's working in this area are doing secondary analyses. They're not doing primary data collection, and that's one advantage, added value of this paper, is we did primary data collection. The other people are just looking at existing data sets and then correlating them with state laws. So we actually went out and collected new data. Was the sample reflective of all states? Yes, it was. 48 states, District of Columbia, and regional differences. We did not see any regional differences. Pia says how the sample was gathered. We didn't say how the sample was gathered. Sample was gathered through Facebook and other social networking sites, and also through a lot of personal on-the-ground recruitment at like Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs and summer programs, various kinds of youth, community youth groups. But a lot came through Facebook and other.
So we missed a question from Elvira. What does this result mean to you?
Well, it means that we are able to see interesting things even before the study starts with the data. It means that we do not have to tailor our intervention materials to state laws. We will certainly mention in the programs, we do booster sessions over time, and we'll mention changing state laws and sort of keep up with the popular movement on this topic, but it doesn't it doesn't force us to redo our prevention programs, which are all done by computers. We're doing one on iPhones and another on laptops and iPads, so we can kind of change them quickly according to the changing field. Other studies on the effect of marijuana legalization abusing other drugs. You know, I'd have to look on that, Caitlin. I know, and I can send you a ton of papers if, let's see, we don't have your email. So if you just send me an email, I can return back with a bunch of papers. My email is my last name, Schinke, at columbia.edu, Schinke at columbia.edu. Matthias way ahead of us there. And I will be happy to send you all sorts of papers that people have written on this topic. Jim says, how long has marijuana been legal in the states that allow for recreational use? The Colorado was the first one. What was that? Anybody remember that? Was that 3 years ago? Colorado? And
Well, I think
then
Washington would say they did it at the same time because they sort of feel like
did they, the
the
state of
neglected
Washington?
publicity. Yep.
Elias says 2011. Question mark, 2011. Tasha says I used to be a school police officer. Ooh.
Hmm.
And a law passed where we're not allowed to give tickets to juveniles for a Class C misdemeanor. Marijuana case, Class C, handled administratively. Recent laws give you more chance. Made the job. Yeah, I bet they do. There we go. Ellie is telling us. That's Ellie. Ellie, that's Colorado, November 6, 2012. Yes.
Hmm. That sounds like an election day.
Does sound like an election day, doesn't it?
Hmm.
First
Yeah.
Tuesday, maybe. If anyone, while
So,
you're typing questions, if anyone has any other questions about online, you know, I mentioned this is the way we teach online, or if any of you are not Columbia students, and I suspect a number of you aren't, anything we can tell you about our program, about social work, what's a social worker doing, studying this topic, is this typical? Those kinds of questions, we're happy to ask those too. We've got 10 minutes left. Short-term study. Well, actually, the study is it's a 5-year study, Jim, but the most of it's consumed with a randomized clinical trial. We will be administering measurements to the people in the study 5 times. Yeah, we do baseline, then we do post-intervention, and then we do 3 follow-ups, 1 year, 2 years, and 3-year follow-up. And so we will continue to collect data on the effects of the prevention trial, and we will be able to report on the states. And of course, the states will change along the way, so it's kind of a moving target because the laws change, and we need to index when we collected the data and what the law was at the particular time. So we're going to continue to. Elliot said Washington was the same time. It was on election day. There you go, Mattia. Sam says, any idea how many sample are using medical rather than recreational? You know, we might have that in the data. We didn't poke in there and see about the medical.
And Barbara's giving a shout out to her course.
Barbara Feldman, who's teaching a course on alcohol and drug abuse and how to treat these problems and deliver interventions and so forth, says that she might be able to incorporate these findings, and that would be fantastic. This is an online course scheduled for the fall. And Stephanie reminds us the application for online students is 25th. They're right up, so I can, yes, Susan, I'd be happy to send it to you way up, about a third up on the page. You see my email address, Schinke at columbia.edu. Just send me a note, and I'll send you the paper. And I'll send you other papers, too, because there are a lot of papers. Elias says, when is the full schedule of classes going to be made available?
I think that
it should be pretty.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Is it for you, Mattia?
Yep.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Getting
there you
everyone's
go.
availability. So. Yep, and Eileen,
social
and a
media.
summer one too.
And a summer one too.
Now, Kristen really
You
wants,
talk, we
she
listen.
posted this twice. She wants to know, what did you do? Like, what was the polling profile that you used on social media? Did you say Columbia School of Social Work wants to ask these questions, or what did you say?
Mm, no, we had little tiles, these little tiles on Facebook, and Facebook is very picky about what you can say on the little tiles, and so we said things like, um, do you want to be in a project, maybe research project, um, around prevention? Maybe some of them said that. Some of them said, join us
Mhm.
in learning more about drug use among youth. Various things. We probably had 100 different ads. If you've ever advertised in Facebook, you know it's really fast. You put up an ad and boom, people apply, and you spend about $1,000, and so you go, whoa, we didn't get many hits on that, so then we do another one, and same thing. So you just keep changing them, and Facebook does this themselves, and changes them and change them until we start getting hits.
Mhm.
Look at that. Lilith says, able to hear this while driving in LA traffic. There you go, Mattia. There's a
Yep.
first. And
Mhm.
what other
Actually, you know what?
questions do you have?
That's not a first because we had somebody join us for statistics orientation this fall who was in the moving truck while she was moving.
And we had someone in a bus too, because
Hmm.
the student took her camera and put it out the window, and we were seeing the landscape go by on the bus. Um, that's something. So the study, use social media areas affected by poverty that don't have. Yeah, our sample were limited to people who. But remember, we also went out. The social media sample was limited to people who could get on. But remember, we also went out to boys and girls clubs and youth uh, organizations, neighborhood organizations, summer programs, things like that that were serving probably a bit more at risk youth, programs that were free over the summer. Boys and Girls Club maybe charges $1 or something, a lifetime fee, but it's pretty low. So we got part of our sample that way too. And let's see what else we have. The limits of these data. Well, the limits of the data is the sample was very heavily female and heavily Hispanic. And we had 1,300 people, which is a relatively small sample for a study like this. So we're not generalizing to other, and we are 13 to 15 too. So Pia said we had a group project meeting last night using the big blue button, dial in while driving,
Mhm.
and then hop online. Mattia, for others,
Big Blue
for
Button is
people who are
the
not in the in
conferencing,
crowd
the
here, you
video
want to tell what a
conferencing that
big
we
blue
use
button is?
for our students for group projects or students wanting to meet on webcam between classes. So that's really great that that works so well. And did you see Julia's comment?
It's very great. Yeah.
Julia,
So
she's
again,
listening
for
while
those
having dinner with her teenage kids,
for
so
the
it's
who's
prompting some great
comment,
discussion.
there you go. Some great discussion. And again, for those of you who are not familiar with the way we teach online, the students are all over the country, as we saw from that poll. And so we have to use video conferencing mechanisms for people to do study groups and all sorts of interactions with them. And Barbara, you will be happy to use these tools when you're teaching your course. Robert says most studies show higher levels of use by males. Why might yours be different? I don't know. We have a heavy female sample, so we oversampled young women. The rates are fairly low, so we could be seeing some anomalies that a few people are using a lot. When you have relatively small samples, you can have that happen. A few heavy users can affect the overall mean. Those who took our course in statistics know that the mean can be skewed by a few outliers, and so it could be pulled over. It could have a positively skewed distribution to people who are using more marijuana. I haven't looked at the data to see that. So we have 2 minutes left. Any questions at all? Now is your moment. And thanks, everybody. And hello to my former students. It's good to see you. Good to be with you, even though I can't hear you and see you. Just to know you're online.
Yep. Caitlin,
Great.
we're
Thank you,
excited for you to
Caitlin,
start.
Kristen. Elia, thank you. We're gonna Elia, we're gonna work on that article now. You'll regret that you logged in here. We're gonna get that article out. Come on, let's get going. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for logging in.
Yep.
We recorded it. Is the recording
we sent it out to
available,
everyone who
Mattia, to
registered.
anybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, and Omar squeezed in a last question for you here.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, many employers now use Facebook background checks. Are any concern? People who may be willing to participate due to searching. So they by participating they kind of outed themselves. Well, no, we just said let's be in a study. Would you like to be in a study? We didn't say you have to be using drugs or anything. It's just do you want to join a research project, whatever language we said.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
7 o'clock. See you, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Barbara.